Welcome into New Track Record Podcast 2025, first edition. Caleb Hatch, Justin Kinney with you, back after the break over the holidays and ready to dissect a lot of interesting IndyCar and IndyCar adjacent storylines for you as our first episode of the new year. First off, hi, Justin.
Hello, Caleb. Happy 2025 to you.
Yes, you as well. Hope you had a good break.
It was nice. It was at times relaxing, other times chaotic, mostly chaotic, but that's how things are on the holidays. How about you guys?
Same.
Yeah.
Mix of both.
Running around. Happy first Christmas to Teddy.
Yes, which, I mean, he doesn't know what's going on.
You know, it's just, it's different. It'll get different with every year as he gets older, but...
We did something, and I will admit, we did something that is terrible, but I think people would understand.
Okay.
We didn't wrap a single gift.
For anybody? Or just in the house?
Like, in the house.
Right.
So, like,
he doesn't care,
for him,
obviously.
We didn't wrap any gifts. For ourselves, like, for each other, we didn't wrap any
Well, it's tough to wrap that brand new car that you got your wife.
Yeah,
and you have the giant bow on it.
Yeah,
you know, those people with those commercials. Like, who are these people?
I always wonder
cars?
that every year. I didn't see any of those this year, though.
And my bigger question, like, where do you get those giant bows at?
But the bows have to cost hundreds of dollars.
Yeah, right. You know, all you people out there listening to this podcast that got your new Lexus or whatever for Christmas, congrats. But,
Lexus or GMC, they used to have those ads. I didn't see any this year, though, so maybe that era has passed.
Maybe they've realized
people aren't gifting each other cars for Christmas.
This isn't real life. But no cars were gifted by either one of us this Christmas.
No. Getting to IndyCar, so we got kind of three main things. We have Helio Castroneves going to make a run at the Daytona 500 next month. We have the latest on IndyCar and the Indy 500 entries. Marco Andretti confirmed at Andretti with the fourth entry as expected. And then also, news that came down today as we record on Friday, January 10th, Friday morning, Venu Sports is finished after what looked to be earlier in the week. It was going to proceed forward after a bunch of court rulings. So we'll get to all that. We start, I would say, with Helio, because this is the biggest story for IndyCar. Him attempting to make his NASCAR debut in the Daytona 500 with Trackhouse Racing. This is a big deal. And they tried, I believe it was last year. I'm not 100% on that. I believe it was last year. Helio wanted to make a run at Daytona. And thankfully for him, it's not going to be his first attempt as far as in a stock car, as he's going to run in the ARCA race with Catherine Legge, go figure, as well. She's going to participate in that as well. But so he'll get some track experience outside of just the Cup car. But I think this is really big for IndyCar because if he makes the race, which is not a given, mind you,
right,
in the Project 91 entry, which is going to be sponsored by Wendy's, so you can make a lot of good tie-ins there, I'm sure. But if he makes the race, this is outstanding kind of PR and promotion for the Indy 500 in May because they're both Fox properties.
It's just a natural connection with Fox, Daytona, and then Daytona will be mid-February, and then it's the week after the Super Bowl, right? So I think the 16th of February.
Yes.
Which is 3 weeks away from the start of the IndyCar season, so cross-promotion will be huge anyway, I would hope, but even another added element if Helio is starting Daytona. So he has raced at Daytona before, so he was in IROC races in Daytona.
I forgot about
20 years ago. So he has done some stock car racing at Daytona, but basically what the plan is for Helio is a shakedown test after simulator work, shakedown test at Talladega, and then, like you mentioned, doing the ARCA season opener, the same process that Shane Van Gisbergen did when he was preparing for Daytona with Trackhouse. So Helio said, we like you said, we tried to put something together last year, didn't work. It was always a no from Roger Penske when he was with Team Penske. Said he's always wanted to do Daytona. It's always kind of been something that you felt would be more popular with drivers, considering IndyCar is never in season that early, but it has to be right time, right opportunity. It is for Helio. He can kind of, that part of his career where he can pick and choose what he wants to do. And hopefully we'll see Helio start in the field for the Daytona 500 come February 16th.
Darian Grubb, the crew chief, a name I've heard of, so that's positive for him. And he'll either have to earn a spot through single car qualifying or in the duel. So he'll be teammates with Ross Chastain, Shane Van Gisbergen, as you mentioned, and Daniel Suarez. So 4 drivers, 4 different nationalities for Trackhouse, which they're the team, right, that took over Chip Ganassi Racing Charters?
Yes,
so,
correct.
They've been obviously a very quality NASCAR team from the get-go, and this is a great opportunity. Look, it's a good ride. He's got the right people around him. He's got good teammates. Just got to make the race. Really, I mean, that's what it comes down to, and hopefully that's in qualifying. If not, it's in the duel. But this is a guy, as you mentioned, so he ran at IROC. That was 2002 to 2005. He's also run in Supercars and Brazil Stock Car Series, so he has experience elsewhere. And, of course, won the Rolex 24 3 different times. So he's got experience at Daytona, just not necessarily in a NASCAR Cup car. But the promotion that NASCAR had for this, they're excited about it. IndyCar should obviously be excited about it. This is a really big deal, and I think a great starting point as far as promoting the Indy 500 and IndyCar going to Fox, which Nathan Brown teased that the wild card game on Fox Sunday afternoon for the NFL will have the first IndyCar driver theme promo featuring Joseph Newgarden during the third quarter of that game. So
stay tuned for
all
that.
of the connection. We talked about this before, right? Fox having the Super Bowl, Daytona 500, Indy 500. This is a perfect year as far as launching IndyCar on TV.
Definitely, and this is just another added piece of the puzzle, and is only going to help. So I think this is tremendous for Helio. He's a guy that deserves the opportunity that this is presenting. It's been a wish of his for a long time, and now he's able to do it. And Trackhouse is great. We've seen Kimi Räikkönen able to start some NASCAR races, Shane Van Gisbergen, and what he's turned that into. They're very much opportunistic, and this is just the latest opportunity that they've been able to present to a driver, and Helio's running with it. And maybe at some point McLaren has kind of been that team, but maybe not completely out of the box in terms of putting drivers into seats in IndyCar. But what Trackside has been able to do on the Cup side, and they were even asked about the Indianapolis 500 at some point, wanting to do the Indianapolis 500. They said, yeah, it's on the bucket list.
Which they've said that in the past.
Yeah,
it's not really new.
Yeah, it's not new. But what they've done in NASCAR to open opportunities to guys outside of the stock car world, you would love to see it come to IndyCar if Trackhouse is maybe a regular at the Indianapolis 500 by the end of the decade. I think would be pretty cool.
So, again, not a guarantee he makes the race.
We don't have an entry list or anything, right? It's way too early.
I don't believe so.
And they start 43?
40.
40, okay.
It used to be 43.
Right. I didn't know if it was different for Daytona, if they have enough entries. But
There's, 36 chartered spots?
Okay, there you go.
I believe.
And then there's 4 at-large kind of things.
So
now,
look,
does that charter then... You're not locked into Daytona, right? You have to qualify for Daytona.
You're locked in if you're a charter entry, but this is not a chartered entry.
Okay, it's an extra entry. Okay, got it.
So we look at this. I mean, ultimately, it comes down to, can he make the race? And we saw Connor Daly running the Daytona 500. What was that? Was that last year? Was that 2 years ago? I can't remember.
2 years ago, I believe.
But
I think,
and he had to get in right on the duels, if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, this is a great opportunity for him. I think it's deserved for him to have this opportunity. It's wild that Penske maybe doesn't do more of this kind of thing with his drivers. But
yeah,
it's, again, he's accomplished everything. He's won the Rolex 24 3 times. He's won the Indy 500 4 times.
Yeah.
Why not take a crack at it and try to join AJ and Mario as winning both the Indy 500 and Daytona 500?
And it's definitely a bucket list item for Helio. I think Helio knows that he's not ageless. He may look ageless, but he's not ageless. And being able to do something that he's always wanted to do in one of the premier automobile races in the world is something that he's always wanted to do. And for him to have the opportunity to hopefully at least make the field, start the race, go around for a couple hundred laps at Daytona, hopefully it it works out for him.
Absolutely. It comes down to, do you think he makes the race?
I think he makes the race.
I do too.
I think Trackhouse knows Daytona qualifying isn't as unpredictable as Indy 500 qualifying.
Yes.
Now, so the duels only set the front 2 rows, right? The old, we used to call it the
qualifying, I think,
maybe
sets like pole.
This is like trying to remember how the Indy 500
We are not
works
NASCAR experts, nor do we pretend to be.
No.
So if everyone's saying, oh, you're wrong, it's this, look.
This is an IndyCar podcast.
Yeah, this is an IndyCar podcast.
But when I paid more attention to NASCAR, it was regular single lap qualifying that set the front row, right? Or the front 2 rows?
Yes, the front row, I think.
And the duels set the field.
Yes.
I do believe. Is what it works. You have to qualify for the race through the duels. Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Except for the front row.
Yes.
Again, we don't know.
And here's the thing. If you
think Daytona 500 qualifying is hard, man, we have to brush up on Indy 500 qualifying every year.
I'm sure there's a NASCAR podcast out there trying to figure how to try to explain how Indy 500 qualifying works. So this is not biased one way or the other. They're both clusters. We're just trying to piece together what we remember and actually what it is now. But I do believe it's single car qualifying for the front row, and then you have to qualify through the duels. But like you said, if you have a charter, you're locked in for Daytona.
Yes.
Or before the charters, they went by owner points or whatever the year before.
Here we go. I found it. Front rows, top 2 cars from single car qualifying.
Hey, look at
got that right. Rows 2 to 19 set by the duels. First duel filling the inside row by order of finish. Second duel filling outside row by order of finish.
Okay.
Taking into account top 2 cars from single car qualifying already is the front row. And then any open driver didn't make the field excluded. Then row 20, which is the last row, consists of the last 2 open cars to make it on speed. That's the starting order for the Daytona 500.
All right, there you go.
At least that's how it was last year.
All right. Yeah, well,
I'm sure it's different now.
If it didn't say anything like Indianapolis, they will change it year to year.
But all in all, if Helio makes it, which I feel confident he will based on the team he is with, and barring something crazy happening, this is big for IndyCar and a great story to start the year off for the sport.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned, the stars aligning of sorts at Fox with having the Super Bowl, which it rotates between 4?
Fox, CBS, NBC.
Is that it? Does ABC, ESPN get it? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I think it rotates between 3. So it just so happens that this year is a Fox year for the Super Bowl. They always have Daytona, and now they have IndyCar, which, it's almost a blessing too, because IndyCar, has it started as this early recently? I just feel like it's always like we're waiting until the second or third week of March. Am I wrong, or is it always the first? Saturday
They moved it up a couple years ago.
But I think with the momentum you get on Super Bowl Sunday, Daytona, then you're only 3 weeks away from the start of the season.
2 weeks.
2 weeks?
Yeah.
So 19th, 20th. Yeah.
2 weeks away.
Yeah.
So that's good. You have the Super Bowl, you have Daytona, then 2 weeks, and then you have IndyCar at St. Pete.
Yes. So it's great and good for Helio to have this opportunity. We'll see how he does.
So that's the good news. I guess since we were kind of tying in Fox to all this, the bad news.
Oh, it's bad news?
Yes. This is IndyCar. You have to take the good with the bad. The bad news is Venu Sports, which was set to be the streaming partner for IndyCar and a lot of other sports, is officially dead. And this is a wild change from what we saw just a few days ago when it had been announced that Hulu Live TV, which was essentially the streaming cable version, competitor of YouTube TV, cable outlets, DirecTV, Dish, etc. They were going to merge with Fubo, who had filed the lawsuit to block Venu Sports from launching.
Right.
So it's like, oh, good.
Yeah, the path is clear now.
Yeah, the path is clear. Disney wanted to buy Fubo, and everything was locked in. And then suddenly that changed because Fubo had sued Disney to block Venu Sports. Fubo then was going to drop their suit. Venu was moving forward. Everything was hunky-dory. And then in a shock announcement that came down this morning, Venu Sports will be discontinued. The joint venture from ESPN, Fox, and Warner Brothers Discovery, no more. That's
Have
effective
you gotten a
immediately.
reason? Yeah, it's just kind of weird. Once the path kind of cleared, then they decided they weren't going to do it.
They released a statement that after careful consideration, we have collectively agreed to discontinue the Venu Sports joint venture and not launch the streaming service in an ever-changing marketplace. We determined that it was best to meet the evolving demands of sports fans by focusing on existing products and distribution channels. We're proud of the work that has been done on Venu to date and grateful to the Venu staff, whom we will support through this transition period. So IndyCar, again, was set to have all their practice and qualifying streaming on those outlets for people who didn't get Fox Sports 1 or Fox Sports 2.
I mean,
obviously,
they would have
everyone
access
has
to the channels. That
they would have access.
Yes.
So that is no longer, and now for IndyCar, you need to come up with an alternative streaming plan.
You do. I guess. I don't know. I'm just kind of. I kind of countered with it. Like, look, all you need is the Farmer 5 to get every single race for IndyCar this year in 2025. That's just amazing to me. I don't think the fact that you can't stream all qualifiers and practices through a convenient avenue is that bad. How many people are really tuning in to qualifying and practices on Peacock last year? I mean,
we don't know.
Right, you don't. But let's say the highest non-Indy 500 qualifying show got what? 100,000 maybe?
Oh, I wouldn't even go that high.
You wouldn't even go that high?
In terms of non-Indy 500 related practice and qualifying, in terms of how many people streamed a session, within, doesn't Nielsen do like the live plus 48 hours for their final ratings, right?
I think so.
So we factor that in. I mean, what are we looking at? 10,000, 20,000?
For quals, you think?
Yeah.
Ooh.
I'm saying that's the high end.
Man,
I don't think there are a lot of people who are watching.
And that's kind of my point.
And maybe I'm off. Maybe it's 20 to 50. I don't know.
But it's not millions.
No,
okay,
and it's not 100,000 plus out. Again, we're excluding the Indy 500. I feel confident in that.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if a couple qualifying sessions for races maybe got, I don't know, 40, 50,000. Maybe we're completely off, but they're not a lot of people. This is the thing. There aren't enough of us IndyCar fans out there to move the needle enough to where Fox is going to go, you know what, we're going to go all out and try to figure out a way to stream these sessions because they're not worth it. Now, if Fox does it, that's great, but it's not a priority. Okay, so let's just be thankful that Fox, crazily, in my opinion, is putting every single race on network.
Well, they lost a lot of their NASCAR races, so they need to fill that inventory.
Yeah, so to me, the people that are always looking for something to complain about, and some people say that's me, I'm not complaining about this. So we had it great with Peacock. We only had to pay $5, $6, $7 a month. But you know what? That's just not realistic. And I'm sorry, the fan base isn't big enough. This isn't the NFL to where, oh my gosh, there's millions of fans that don't have access to a program. You're talking about a couple tens of thousands of fans at most that were tuning in to qualifying. I'm sorry. And probably no more than 10,000 at most for any practice session.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I'm sorry, that's just not enough to really move the needle for Fox to say, wow, this is a big void. We have to find a way to stream those. No, they are available on FS1 and FS2. Just get cable. Okay? And I know for a long time, everybody's cord cutting. I get it.
Cable's actually become cheaper than the streaming options recently. So
yeah, I mean, if you have to get the multitude of streaming options, you're paying more.
Here's my thing. IndyCar does need some sort of streaming option as far as for fans. I still believe they need to put together something, and they literally have something. They have IndyCar Live. Just make it available to users in the U.S., and I'm not sure if it's available in Canada or not, but make it available. And I forget what the cost is. I don't think it's very expensive.
Yeah.
At most, it's $10 a month. Do a season pass like F1 and other series do.
$50 for the season.
Oh, I'd say 100, but
Really?
where you get everything, including the races.
Yeah. Okay, I was just thinking practice quals.
Yeah, if it's just practice quals, yeah.
I don't know if you're doing the races because Fox may have something to say about that.
Yeah.
Saying, hey, no, you're not offering that because we're paying this much money to broadcast. Basically, you don't need IndyCar Live or whatever they want to call it. Remember NBC Sports Gold? Wasn't that fun?
Yeah.
And you don't need that to watch the races. The races are on every freaking television as long as you have antenna, let alone anything else.
Which again, go buy one. You hook it up to your TV. They at most cost $20 to $30.
If you don't have Fox in your house,
that's on you.
Some capacity. That's on you. That's not on IndyCar or Fox. But my thing is for me, in terms of what Fox has done for IndyCar heading into 2025 is so far and above anything I possibly would have dreamed of for this series and where it's at, that any criticism to me of Fox or IndyCar in the realm of broadcasting programming in this country, I kind of roll my eyes at. So I'm like, do you realize how spoiled IndyCar is to have every single race on network? It's insanity. And I'm sorry, the diehards like you, me, and our listeners are just not enough in number to dictate a real effort to make sure these practices and quals are able to be streamed. That said, I ask you, weekend of St. Pete, do you feel like there is a streaming option for qualifying and practice? Maybe even just practices.
I don't feel confident.
You don't feel confident?
Only because this happens so late in the game. Now, again, IndyCar, and it depends on how the contracts work, because, again, Venu Sports is out, and I'm sure that was a part of the contract in terms of the streaming deal. So IndyCar has their in-house thing for international viewers with IndyCar Live. So if you just extend that, depending on how the contracts work, which, again, IndyCar should be free from the streaming component because Venu Sports is axed,
right?
That's the easy fix.
Correct.
And make it available to U.S. users, whether that's just practice and qualifying sessions or whether that's including races, and I forget what they charge. What is it, like $10 a month or something like that? Or I mean, at most it's $20 a month.
But, Fox could push back and say, whoa, we want more people to have to get FS1 and FS2.
But won't they need to deliver on some sort of streaming component? Because there isn't one.
I haven't read the fine print of the contract, but we'll try to get over
Nor have I.
But so does, like to say, take NASCAR for example. They have a NASCAR Live to where you can watch quals.
That's a good question.
I would imagine they do. And what does that deal look like? We're going to do research here on the fly because we never prepare for such.
That's like leaderboard. Before. I think that NASCAR Live is a thing because I've heard of it.
But does it have? Is it like the MRN feed with the track feed, or is it actually direct from?
Well, they have Peacock for the NBC, and then obviously Prime.
Yeah, I was
and
just
Max
thinking for the Fox
other
races.
So for Prime races, which there are 10 for Max.
10 this
year? Max will stream the ones that aren't there races on TNT? Right,
they're all over the place. Yeah.
So it's really just Fox. Fox doesn't have a streaming package. So that's why Venu Sports was so important.
But it has a streaming deal with Hulu, doesn't it? Like for its programming.
Yes, they do.
I'm just wondering what Fox let's see, Fox NASCAR stream. Let's see what pops up.
I'm pretty sure you have to just sign it. Like you could use the Fox Sports app, but you have to be signed into your cable, satellite, whatever partner.
Now, I think you can stream versus like Xfinity and stuff like that. But yeah, that doesn't help people who don't have cable. But I guess, I've said this multiple times before. If IndyCar means to you as much as I hope it does, then just pay for cable from March through to September.
Or if that's not on the cards for you, make sure you have an antenna and just watch the races. I get it's an inconvenience, but as always, it's a loud minority of people who are upset about this. And that's what I have to remind myself.
It's an inconvenience to the minority that want to sound like the majority.
So, like, the people who are saying, I got used to watching everything on Peacock, and I'm going to miss that, and it was only, $5, $6, $7 a month. The price escalated throughout. But we're not talking a large percentage of people who are watching
not at
it
all.
That way. I mean, yes, the numbers for the Indy 500 on Peacock were massive.
Correct.
But for other races, they weren't that high.
If they were higher, then Fox would make it more of a priority.
Yes.
But they aren't.
So, IndyCar Live, make it available to your U.S. Fans.
Would be nice, but who knows
option.
what the fine print says in that
we'll see what happens. Obviously, this is a developing thing. I mean, it just happened this morning.
Yeah.
So we'll see how IndyCar reacts.
But I also think, and I was going to say, well, Mark Miles can't say this, but you never know with him. He may say it. I just feel like there's bigger issues and topics for IndyCar to tackle than figuring out how 5% of your fan base can watch quals and practice.
Yeah, we're not talking 100,000 fans. We're talking less, like half that at most, again, outside the Indy 500.
IndyCar, they got bigger fish to fry than this. I'm sorry. That's my opinion. I'm sure that's the opinion of IndyCar. Again, they probably won't say it, but then it's Mark Miles may say it, but he loves to put his foot in his mouth. Like you said, it's a loud minority.
And speaking of Fox, one other headline with Fox. The word leaking out, first saw this from Adam Stern. Nathan Brown of the Indy Star had a good article as well, kind of highlighting. But Will Buxton, apparently the favorite to be the play-by-play guy for Fox for IndyCar, which is an interesting hire.
And not a cheap hire.
No.
Because he makes money with F1.
Yeah, he does F1 TV. IndyCar fans probably familiar with him. He did a couple of IndyCar races during the NBC days, back when NBC also had F1 as well. In that era, when it was Lee Diffie as play-by-play, Steve Matchett, David Hobbs, and then Will Buxton was the pit reporter for NBC during the F1 on NBC era, which was, 2013 to 17, I think?
And that was in-house production. Like, that wasn't picking up Sky's Sports feed.
Yes.
Right.
NBC was producing it, I think, out of Charlotte, and the commentators would often be in a studio in Charlotte.
Okay, but they were
or near Bristol, in I think Stamford, Connecticut.
But they were picking up the F1 feed like Sky Sports does. Gotcha.
Yes, but
they weren't on site.
Yeah, only Will Buxton was on site, with the exception of a couple races. I think they would fly.
Yeah, I think some of the bigger ones, but no, I think Will Buxton would be tremendous for IndyCar. It sounds like, could he be that lead play-by-play guy, which may be the enticement that he needs to leave Formula One.
Yes,
to do that. But also Ryan Hunter-Reay's name in the mix as maybe the in-booth driver analyst potentially.
Yeah, so he doesn't want to be full-time as far as a pit reporter, but he's interested in doing some TV work. I think he would be a good hire. Obviously, James Hinchcliffe, Townsend Bell, also on the radar as far as being in the booth. But interesting move. I mean, Buxton is more known for being a pit reporter and a presenter, kind of a host role. He has done play-by-play in the past with what was then GP3 previously. So he has experience, also did GP2 as well for the F1 feed from 2008 to 2014. Also worked for Speed and then worked for NBC. So this is kind of we all expected Kevin Lee or Alan Bestwick, and this is not, I think, what we expected. But this is a guy who comes with name recognition for a younger audience due to Drive to Survive, and is been featured prominently on there. Exactly. Obviously, F1 fans know Will Buxton in general, just because he's been around the sport forever.
Well respected.
Kind of a off-the-wall hire, but a part of me is like, they're doing something different, and I'm going to wait and see how this works out, because he's got high energy. I get that not everyone likes Lee Diffie.
I guess he's not too young, but
I get that not everyone likes Lee Diffie. I personally like Lee Diffie and how he went about the broadcasts. He added more excitement than was there a lot of times.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes
made it entertaining.
I didn't no problem with Lee Diffie.
I think Will Buxton kind of be similar in that kind of style,
right?
But I think this is a get for IndyCar and for Fox that I think could draw some viewers.
Well, I think to me it shows another example of the commitment that Fox is making to IndyCar, because it would be easy just to say, all right, Kevin Lee, come over. wipe your hands, we're done. Alan Bestwick, you already the PA voice at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, wipe your hands, we're done, move on. But no, they've looked and said, who could we bring in? Maybe not the best option is the easiest option. Maybe the best option isn't the cheapest option. And how many times has IndyCar and their broadcast partners done that route? And no, instead Fox is going, let's just open this up and see who's interested and maybe gauge interest. Maybe you have to pay somebody a heck of a lot of money by IndyCar broadcast standards to come do our races. I just think it's another positive in what this new TV partner is doing to, quite frankly, make IndyCar feel more important than the ratings indicate. And the hope is that the ratings then jump because of it. But it also, to me, said, and this is why I kind of scoff at people that want to nitpick about this, that, or the other in terms of broadcasting, is IndyCar doesn't deserve this. IndyCar doesn't deserve to have 17 races on Fox, right? IndyCar doesn't deserve to have every practice and qualifying session available on cable. I mean, the ratings they're quite frankly, look at the race at Nashville had terrible ratings on network. It was terrible. Granted, it was under 500,000 people.
That's why you don't go against the NFL.
Exactly. It was like, IndyCar doesn't deserve all this, but look at Fox. Fox is coming to the plate and say, every race on network, let's do it. And like the ratings don't justify what Fox is putting in. The hope is for the series and the TV partner that the end game justifies the means. But Will Buxton doing IndyCar races, whether he's great or good or whatever you think of Will Buxton, the fact that he's ensconced in Formula One and it's going to cost, could it cost $1 million to get Will Buxton to do a year of IndyCar? Maybe.
I would think.
It's just a great thing to see that Fox is not, and the executives said as much, but its executives never voted. No, but they're going to put every effort into this. And I'm not knocking Kevin Lee. I think he does a great job. I'm not knocking Alan Bestwick. I think he did a great job when he did IndyCar races on ABC and he did NASCAR on NBC, I think.
Yeah, way back in NASCAR at its peak, he was the NASCAR guy for NBC.
So not knocking those guys, but it would just have been easy to bring one of those two and say, all right, cool. Yeah, James Hinchcliffe, come on over. We'll just keep the band together and in continuity. No, they're looking at ways to better the broadcast in their minds and bring maybe more respected motorsports people into the IndyCar on Fox arena. And I think that's awesome. And I'm extremely thankful for it. The series is undeserving for it. Hopefully we as a fan base react and other fans outside that come into IndyCar and find IndyCar now reciprocate this appreciation for what Fox is doing.
All in all, I mean, again, and word can come down apparently as soon as next week as far as who's going to be doing what. Other names mentioned, Jack Harvey could be in a role for Fox for IndyCar or Indy Lights, Charlie Kimball. In terms of pit reporters, we mentioned Ryan Hunter-Reay could be part-time, could be full-time, minus the Indy 500, of course, that he's running with Brian Reinbold. Amanda Busick, mentioned by Nathan Brown. She's covered the NHRA for Fox.
Okay.
Also done work for NASCAR's other series, along with several other sports car series. Jenny Taft, who does college football for Fox as well. Jamie Little, you'd expect to have a role for Fox. She does ARCA.
Okay, she does ARCA. She doesn't do any Cup on Fox?
I am not sure. At a minimum, you would think she'd do the Indy 500 for Fox as a pit reporter, but I mean, she'd be a good hire as a pit reporter as well. There are other people. I mean, look, this is
huge. I would expect to see Erin Andrews in May.
That's a good point.
At Indy?
Yeah.
I mean, she is, the top sideline reporter for Fox. And so looking a little ahead to that, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see just what that full-time crew looks like. I would love to have the majority of it be a full-time crew. As much as I appreciate the NBC broadcasting, the pit crew, You know, you get Marty Snyder every third race.
Yeah, because of the NASCAR conflict.
Yeah, I mean, and I get it. I understand, but it was almost like it'd really be nice to have the same people every single race.
Mm-hmm. And they should have that ability.
Yeah, they don't have to share with NASCAR.
They're not as many conflicts. So
not as many conflicts, for sure.
We'll see how that plays out. But obviously, we'll get some answers on the booth and the TV broadcast lineup in terms of the on-air talent pretty soon. But I like that it's kind of outside the box. Not like you said,
too.
Not that there's anything wrong with Alan Bestwick and Kevin Lee. I think they do an outstanding job. I think Fox is looking to make a splash here, and I think that can only be a good thing. Also, side note, our thoughts to Townsend Bell. He lost 2 houses in the fires in L.A. Just awful.
Just wild.
It's unbelievable seeing the images, and he posted a picture of, he said he lost 2 houses. They tried everything to save him. Everyone's safe. But, I mean, pretty much just the area right above his garage, and like his garage area is intact and everything else is gone. It's unbelievable to see.
Yeah, it's and hopefully the death toll doesn't go up much more, but the fact that I want to say only 10, but I just look at those fires and you're like, hopefully as many people as possible heeded the advice to leave. It'd be very difficult to leave your home. But man, those things are so fast moving, especially once the winds kick up, which has been a problem all week. That has really spread these things. So, thoughts out to Townsend Bell, and he put on a brave face in that picture. But I'm sure it's been a lot of anguish, a lot of heartache this week, as for him as well. Thousands of others out in California this week.
Absolutely. And one other thing I want to get to before we move on. Marco Andretti officially confirmed Mape. I never know how to say it. Do you know how to say it?
How to say it?
They're back as the sponsor.
Maybe.
He will compete in the number 98 entry with Andretti Global for the Indy 500. So we have 31 car and driver combinations set, 33 entries set. That's with Dale Coyne running 2 entries, 2 TBAs. More on that in a bit. And you look at where the other entries could come from. I mean, we think Chevy's kind of locked in. I think we could see potentially a 3rd from either Coyne, a 4th from Ganassi, or a 4th from Rahal, and I think that's about it. I think 2 of those 3 happen, and then that puts us at 35 entries.
Yeah, you've mentioned 35 for a while as your number. I love a pipe dream where we get to 36 somehow, but it's looking pretty promising to get to 35, which you and I are in agreement is the minimum that makes it exciting. I think 34 is just doesn't do it for me. Yeah, there's bumping, but you bump 1. 35 or more really gets it going for me, and it looks like we're on track to get to 35.
Now, in terms of other silly season updates, nothing from Coyne yet.
Of course not.
We know that Sergio Perez will not be one of the drivers. Not that that's a surprise. I did see an interesting tweet over the last couple weeks that Toby Sowery had kind of hinted at something coming sooner or later in terms of, for him, he had an hourglass and an eye emoji in terms of a ride. So I wouldn't be shocked if he's one of those drivers for Coyne. And then Rinus VeeKay saying that things are looking good as far as Dale Coyne Racing and a seat for 2025. An article via GP Fans, thanks to Hickey93 for finding that article. But things it looks good in terms of a seat for him. So if those are the options, interesting. And then also this, AT Florio found this, an article from the Italian motorsports site that as far as the schedule for Lamborghini, which Romain Grosjean participates with that team in sports cars, the article implies that Grosjean has an IndyCar seat for 2025 because he can't do IMSA and Watkins Glen because of IndyCar at Road America. So those are names to keep in mind.
I mean, if Dale Coyne rolled out at St. Pete, Romain Grosjean, and Rinus VeeKay,
as we mentioned previously.
Yeah, I mean, that's to me right now, that's the best case scenario in terms of a driver lineup.
Yes.
If you can land those. Now, the problem is, of course, money. Does it come from drivers? Does it come from an investor into the team, which we know through multiple stories that Dale Coyne is actively searching for an investor or multiple investors into the team? Could that be what's holding up any announcements. Let's say if Dale Coyne's waiting. If he can get an investor or two, he hopes to get VK and Grosjean. If he doesn't, he's going to have to take money from Toby Sowery and others potentially. So that could be, I mean, we know that money is what's holding this up, but where that money comes from may be the factor that decides who's in those seats come St. Pete.
All right. With that, if you disagree or if you agree with us, we'd love for you to hear from us. You can always interact with us on social media, IndyCar Podcast on Twitter/X, also on Instagram, on Facebook. Just search for New Track Record. You can email us your questions, comments, concerns, rants, newtrackrecordpodcast@gmail.com on there. Also, you can support us via Patreon, patreon.com/New Track Record. Thanks to Xavier and others for their support. And as always, download and listen on your favorite podcasting platform, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, I believe on Amazon, basically wherever you find your podcasts, download and listen for free. Let's dive into the mailbag. Not a ton of news items as expected, just over the holidays. Not a lot of stuff going on. You posted this IndyCar Fandom New Year's resolution. You want to try and watch more races live instead of recorded. As you should.
Do. Yes, that's my goal.
And then you posted for me. You didn't ask for my input. But collect all Random Split Era Drivers of the Week diecast, beginning with Didier Andre, which I don't know if I could pull that off, but that actually sounds pretty cool.
I agree.
That sounds really cool.
I would say we should reach out to our listeners and say, show us your Random Split Era Driver of the Week diecasts if you own any.
And I doubt anyone has any.
If you tag us with an Andre Lauderer diecast.
Giorgio Pontino diecast.
Yes, the list goes on and on.
Well, he's not a Random Split Era driver, but he might as well be.
I agree. I think at the end of our what we thought was a little bit that has now gone multiple years, we should then have a hypothetical Indianapolis 500. Actually, the entire month of May we'll have qualifying sessions. We'll do all of it with all Random Split Era Drivers of the Week. What would the Random Split Era Driver of the Week field look like for the Indianapolis 500? That sounds way too intense.
Yeah, way too involved for
any
us
of us to have any time of, but it's nice just to dream.
It is. A couple of replies. Rob_McMahon said, we're all playing checkers. Caleb is playing chess. Historic Hotlep said, just try to make time to see more races in person, more live, less televised. Always a good goal.
It's always the time of year when you make these, whether go to races, whether watch races live, and you're like, this is what I'm going to do, and then just life gets in the way.
Yeah.
It always does.
Yes.
For better or for worse.
I will do my best to try to go to more this year, because last year I think I was limited to just the two in Indy. So a lot of stuff happened this summer.
Usually you get down to Nashville and go to that.
Or Mid-Ohio, or usually there's at least one other. So I'd like to get to at least three.
But you know, that baby boy gets in the way.
Yes.
You know?
Well, that got in the way the morning of the Toronto race.
Yes. Very true.
Haven't looked back since. Elsewhere on the mailbag, a few other things to get to from people over the holiday break. One of our favorite topics.
Third
Third OEM. Racer posted an article. IndyCar making positive steps in its continued chase.
And we both got duped into clicking
engine
on it.
Manufacturer. Now, there were quotes from Mark Miles. Everything sounds positive. I love the replies here. Poet Shevchenko said, hey, at least it's something to talk about, but until that third engine manufacturer actually shows up, and posted the video of Little Lies by Fleetwood Mac. Also, Lynn_IndyCar said, hopefully we see Toyota return with Vassar Sullivan team leading the return. That's what we thought was going to happen a couple years ago. And then Hunter's Way 67 summed it up, for crying out loud, not again. Not again.
Oh, man.
It's the gift that keeps on giving.
It was the most pointless article I've ever seen in my life. But we are suckers.
We are.
Every time you see a story. And then I get, I type in racer, I think it was yesterday, and the headline story was a giant Ford logo. And it said Ford, I don't know, was like looking into, you start reading the headline, you start getting excited.
IMSA.
And it was IMSA.
Yeah. I saw
like, I should have known. Like, we are still
I'm not falling
suckers
for any Ford related thing, because that ship has sailed.
We shouldn't, but I am still a sucker for every third OEM tidbit, even though we write it off here on the podcast, but we are still suckers.
Now, this article, I'd say we're not suckers for this one. Good stuff from motorsport.com. And again, to clarify, Marshall had actual quotes from Mark Miles.
Yes.
So it's worth writing up because he got him to talk on the record.
Yeah, I get it. There was nothing new in there.
Yeah, nothing new. There are no like tangible.
Yeah, not even
in terms of.
Not even we're talking to maybe a third that, you know.
Anytime you can get them to talk about it, you write the article. I get it.
Especially with IndyCar, because from what we've heard, you can't get them to talk about anything.
Yes, correct.
I mean, it was in the mailbag this week where Marshall Pruitt mentioned how he had team owners on the record talking about being shown the new car, and when he contacted IndyCar, they refused to acknowledge that the design even existed. It was like, I have team owners on the record saying they've seen it. Just confirm it. And no, it's wild over there.
This one I thought was notable because these are two tracks that IndyCar there's been some buzz about the last couple of years. This from Joey Barnes, motorsport.com. IndyCar making progress on Denver and Mexico races for future seasons. So that's positive news.
Do you feel, we kind of read between the lines in that story, it felt more like Mexico City for 26.
Yes. Denver did not seem like it is ready for 26.
Which I would expect because it's a street race and you have to.
And they're also adding Arlington in 26. I think it'd be better off spacing it out.
Do we need 3
new events?
I mean, let's not get crazy here.
No. And Miles said, look, if we land one of the two for as early as 2026, that'd be terrific along with Arlington. And I think that's where they're at.
I would hope that Mexico City's on the schedule for 2026. My brother, who lives out in Greeley, Colorado, which is about an hour away from Denver, he likes to be, I'll give him credit. He's a mover and shaker out in Greeley. I think he feels like he's even a bigger mover and shaker than maybe he is. But I told him, start kissing the asses of the right people you need to in Denver, or people that know people in Denver, because if that becomes a thing, I'm coming out there, and you better have a VIP experience waiting for us. So I'll give him a couple years to get that all going, because he was like, there's not a racetrack out here. It's like, oh, but there's a little thing called a street course. That
yes, I was going to say, he's not an IndyCar fan, right?
And I haven't done enough research looking at Denver, because the old course went around like the State House, right?
I think the State House and like around, I don't know what it's called now, but it was the Pepsi Center where the Nuggets play. I think it involved that area, if I'm not mistaken.
Know enough.
Yeah, it's not going to be at Pikes Peak. Sorry, everyone.
Right, not Pikes Peak Raceway. I don't know if there's not like an entertainment complex in Denver, right? Where Coors Field and like, are they all kind of centralized?
I think so for at least 2 of the 3. I'm not 100%, but I believe that's what it was
Mile
before.
High Stadium was out a little bit.
That might be, but I do believe that
but the hockey
baseball
arena and
I believe they're in the same general area.
I don't know if there's an entertainment district with that stuff. That maybe
there
that's
is
where the
an
race
area. I can't remember exactly. I think it's around is it Stockyards? Is that it?
Sounds familiar.
There's an area though, and again, this will be a street race, so they'll figure it out.
The centerpiece won't be the State House. I will say that. That's a little bit different than what, early 90s? Is that when that race ran? Mid-90s?
I can't remember because they've had Denver different eras, like in Champ Car. But either way, look, if you get one of the two, that's good. If you get both, I'd say it's a home run, and Denver's a market IndyCar definitely needs to be in, along with Mexico City, which we've talked at length about that. A couple of replies on this one before we move on. Lynn_IndyCar said, it'll be interesting to see if Mexico City and Denver join the series. Will they be new events or replacing other events, like drop one Iowa race and another race? And look, I think Iowa's down to one race in 2026, as you mentioned, and talking with him. And then the other thing is there a point where the road course race at IMS is dropped because of scheduling and giving teams a week break after Barber, or a 2-week break before Indy? Or do you have another event like does Portland get dropped and Denver get added? That's
what I'm kind of looking at, because it doesn't fit the Pacific Northwest, but it fits the west-ish portion. I don't. from what we've read, nobody likes going to Portland. And the amenities aren't great.
Attendance does not look great.
Yeah, it's not been what the series has hoped for, or the promoter, when it was added.
Started strong the first couple years, but post-pandemic, it's not done well. So
unless there's a big revitalization of Portland over the next couple years, I could see it falling off before the Indy GP going away. But I think at some point, could IndyCar get to a point where every race on the schedule is on solid ground, where your only option is dropping or raising? And we know that we've heard Mark Miles at various points say 20 races is kind of too many right now for the cost. And I think some team owners have said that too. That's just kind of out of their price range. But if costs can be lowered a little bit and you can get to 20, I think that'd be ideal. Maybe 20 by the end of the decade. But for right now, I don't think you're going to see more than 17 or 8, maybe 18 tops. So what I'm trying to say is I think these new races, say 3 of them, Arlington, Mexico City, and Denver, in my opinion, will replace existing races.
Yeah, I think definitely Iowa 2 out.
I think that's gone after this year.
Portland seems iffy. And then Hunter's Way 67 said drop thermal and make Iowa a single race, adding Mexico and Denver, and you get 18. I think that's manageable for the teams. I think 18 kind of feels like a max at the moment.
I do too.
But again, you get
Laguna Seca. I mean,
I don't know.
My thing is, does that have enough? Thermal is interesting because nobody likes it outside the series, but is it liked by enough people with a lot of money that they want to keep it there? I think this year will be very, very important for thermal in terms of, can it make a better impression than it did last year?
Yes.
Felt very Mickey Mouse. It looks very Mickey Mouse, of course, because of the private aspect of the track. But this year will be very important to see whether it's going to make the schedule long term, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a look at the mailbag. We move forward to news and notes and got through a lot of stuff. So there's not really a ton of things to get to. We kind of go back, and there are a few things. So Primo's actually doing their launch later this afternoon, but they are planning to have their first test at the Thermal Club late this month for their first IndyCar test for the series. Also, let's see what else we have going on. New steering wheel, Cosworth MK3 steering wheel set for 2025. Racer.com with the story. 8 of the 11 full-time IndyCar teams set to use this. You can read all about the improvements there.
A lot more buttons and doohickeys in places where the drivers can easily reach them.
Yes. And then another good article on Racer I found interesting. So magnesium, which is becoming harder to source, IndyCar considering a switch to aluminum wheels, not immediately, but in the next couple of years. And Marshall Pruitt with a good breakdown on the pricing, and it doesn't sound like much, $750 per set that could be saved. But multiply that by at least 10, and you're looking at what, $75,000 per set?
$75,000, yeah.
Or excuse me, $75,000 total. And, with multi-car teams, I mean, you're looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars. So that's interesting. Obviously, anytime you switch to aluminum, the concern is always, the strength and will it hold up. But
it sounds like majority of other series use aluminum.
Yeah.
Always the question is the speeds that Indy cars do can change the game, and maybe probably why they haven't switched earlier. But if it works out, sounds like a considerable cost saver for teams, which always helps.
Yeah, with the hybrid costs and costs in general. I mean, Connor Daly, I think, said on Speed Street, Nathan Brown pointed this out, like, teams are looking for $10 million as the start. Like, that used to be just a big 3, big 4 kind of number for a package. But
it used to be if you brought $6 million, you were good for the season.
Yeah, not even. I mean, 5.
Yeah.
So that's crazy.
Not very long ago either.
No. Marcus Ericsson will do some sim work for F1 Cadillac. So good for him getting that role.
Did you also see, I don't know if it was a comment off track about Rossi saying that sim time is being cut for Chevy teams in IndyCar because of the testing going on for Cadillac for F1.
Which makes sense. I mean, it's just kind of the reality.
Yeah,
that's the facility in Charlotte, and that's what they need.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. This was not a surprise. I think maybe more of a surprise that finally happened, but Arrow McLaren officially owns 100%. McLaren Racing, the final 25% stake by Sam Schmidt and Rick Peterson, bought out by McLaren. Kind of a bummer. They're no longer going to be around the sport.
Which was always the plan, it sounded like, when they bought in at 75%. Do you feel like Sam Schmidt, Rick Peterson jump back into the team ownership game at some point, or one or the other in the future? Or do you think they're done?
I think they're done for now. Maybe it could happen years, but I don't think this is something that's imminent that they're going to get back into car ownership.
It takes a lot of effort and money out of you, for sure. So I wouldn't be surprised if those guys lay low at least for a couple years, and maybe they just enjoy watching the series from afar, not being involved in the day-to-day.
Yeah. So unfortunate, because they were kind of the little team for a while,
right?
That had a lot of success. Simon Pagenaud obviously won some races competing for a championship with them over a decade ago, but no longer a part of IndyCar. Elsewhere, Valtteri Bottas said, at the moment, I'm thinking if Formula One for 26 wouldn't happen for some reason, then my focus probably would shift to IndyCar. I think he'll be in an F1 seat in 2026.
Probably. He raced for the worst team in Formula One this past year.
Yeah, it was not an indictment of him.
Not
it was
an indictment
of the team.
So I think he's still got some life left in Formula One. I think teams look at him as more a product of circumstance at his former team than actual racecraft. So I don't think Bottas is going anywhere. If you said who's more likely to be on the grid in Formula One in 2026, Daniel Ricciardo or Valtteri Bottas, would you say Bottas?
Yeah,
Yes.
Bottas, without a doubt. This was hidden, I believe, in the bullet points from IndyCar's Wildest Season Racer article.
That was a good article.
Mike Cannon left due to the same reason a lot of people leave jobs. It came down to pay.
That's tough. I mean, all the positive momentum for AJ Foyt Racing, and I know budgets are budgets and you can't pay X amount, you can't go, but all the positive momentum you had, and Michael Cannon, it usually goes where he felt he had more responsibility for the success. I'm sure the team said, less responsibility for the success than you think. The truth probably somewhere in the middle, and they couldn't agree on a number, but it's tough to see someone like as talented as Michael Cannon walk away from that organization after such a good year that they had last year.
Meanwhile, Meyer Shank Racing co-owner Michael Shank wants IndyCar to consider fly-in crews for IndyCar pit stops.
Well, he said in particular that he would consider it, which I think is interesting. But basically, when you're talking flying crews, these are just like, I was trying to understand this. So these are crews that stay together, train together, and just hire themselves out as a unit.
Yes.
Kind of as I understand
it. A lot of times they're former collegiate athletes.
Yeah.
As he touched on. NASCAR does this, right? It sounds great, but can IndyCar afford it?
Well, I think it's going to be a team-by-team thing, but I think for Meyer Shank, who's looking for any type of edge that he can get, as all team owners are, but I feel like maybe if this is an avenue that he feels could be better for Meyer Shank, then they definitely could take it. But as he mentions, it's costly. It's very costly.
Very costly.
But he said, we can't afford, because he said, a lot of our guys that are over the wall are also doing things throughout the week with engineering and setups and all that stuff.
They're often mechanics.
Yeah, they do a lot of different things. So not only would it help us get better over the wall, but it would also help our mechanics and guys like that with not as much on their plate. So it makes sense, but it all comes down to money.
Well, and these would be part-time workers who are just doing weekend work. So I guess they would have other jobs than fly in, but train.
Yeah.
I don't know. It sounds great in theory. I don't know how you pull it off from a financial perspective. Elsewhere, speaking of finances for IndyCar, engineering shortage leaves IndyCar teams scrambling from Marshall Pruitt. Look, you either promote up or you pay more. It's the same for any industry, and I've seen a lot of complaining about people saying, I want to work for a race team, or no one wants to. People are getting out of the industry. It's the same as other industries.
Right.
It comes down to wages. It's not complicated.
Yeah, and supply and demand. It's a very intimate group in IndyCar paddock.
And part of it is IndyCar does kind of treat itself like an exclusive club, like you're either in the club or you're out of the club.
Well, that's always the thing is you're interested in a job and people are like, well, what experience do you have? And you're like, well, I don't have any experience. Like I'm trying to get into
trying to get into
it, but you can't get a job that demands experience unless you have prior experience. And that's kind of the thing. And maybe the thing is less people are willing or able to take just a grease monkey job to be a low end person of the team and steadily move yourself up. Cost of living and all that stuff continues to rise. It may not be realistic to do that anymore. And then they're not going to hire somebody right into an assistant engineer role without any experience. So it's a very difficult market, I imagine. But it sounds like you either go to F1, you pillage from the lesser series, or you promote from within. Or you take a chance on a fresh-faced engineering major out of Purdue. I think there's a lot of different avenues, and I think each team really does a different strategy. But I think we talk so much about the coins and teams like that developing drivers, but also team members. You get your start at the coins and the Juncoses, right?
Eventually, you got to give your performance engineers and your engineers in lights, if you have a lights team, or if you're looking at talent, I mean, that's how you move up.
And that's a real benefit to having a lights team, and is being able to maybe hire some fresh-faced people.
And also keep people within your organization.
Like Ganassi.
Yes.
Got rid of a couple teams in IndyCar, is now starting a lights program. So I think that's a benefit is you can promote from within if you give guys a chance at the lower levels and they move up. But not every team obviously takes advantage of that. It's a limited pool of talent, of proven talent, and everybody's kind of fighting over it. And Michael Cannon, for an example, weaponized that, demanding X amount of money from Foyt, didn't get it, so he moves on.
And good for him. He had a lot of success in his role.
Take what you can get, right?
Yeah.
Take what you can get while you can.
This just came down a few minutes ago. Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing announced that EV Tech Group, which they call a European leader in the design, manufacture, and supply of complex automotive assemblies and components, including carbon and composites, will be a full-season associate sponsor for Devlin D. Francesco in the number 30 Honda. Primary sponsor for 8 of the races, part of a multi-year deal. Primary sponsor at Barber, IMS Road Course Race, Indy 500, Detroit, Mid-Ohio, Portland, Milwaukee, and Nashville. Now, he's been this has been a sponsor for Devlin in the past. So it's not a new name or a new sponsor.
But an added amount of... I like the...
it's got some fun colors.
It's like a tropical-ish kind of look. Got some greens, got some light blues in there.
But so that just announced a few minutes ago. A couple other things before we get to our random split driver of the week. Junco's Hollinger Racing, they've confirmed their driver number. Stingray Robb will be in the 77. Connor Daly in the 78. VW Group. Adam Stern had this. I thought it was fascinating. VW Group's sporty Spanish brand Cupra, I hope I said that right, has started preliminary talks with Penske Automotive Group to explore a partnership ahead of entering the U.S. by 2030. The CEO of Volkswagen called Penske Automotive CEO Roger Penske a long-lasting partner. Hey, third OEM? No, I don't think so. It's like an SUV type vehicle.
Any crumb that we can grab, we will run with it. We will run with it.
Congrats to Doug Bowles, who was awarded the Sagamore of the Wabash, the highest honor the governor of the state of Indiana can bestow on individuals. Congrats to him.
Pretty cool. Saw him celebrate by
skiing.
Snow skiing, or snow, what would you call that? Like snow skiing, like water skiing.
Yeah.
Behind a looked like one of the IMS trucks after Indy got several inches of snow.
Yeah, like 6-7 inches of snow.
So he took a lap around the track behind a truck snow skiing.
All right, these are a couple of fun things. There have been some odds posted for the Indy 500 and the IndyCar Championship for 2025.
Really?
Okay. Indy 44 on Twitter having the odds. Who would you guess has the best odds?
To win the championship?
Yeah.
Alex Palou.
Yes, he's plus 220.
Okay.
Couple others, Newgarden plus 450, Scott McLaughlin plus 500, plus 800 for Pato and Colton. Willpower plus 1,000. Scott Dixon as well, plus 1,600 for Kyle Kirkwood. Rossi plus 2,000. Marcus Ericsson as well. Felix Rosenqvist plus 3,000. Christian Lundgaard plus 4,000. Santino Ferrucci plus 4,000. Looking to see if there's some other ones. Malukas plus 4,000. Graham Rahal plus 6,000. And obviously, I mean, it just keeps getting higher and higher from there.
Was Pato and Colton both 800?
Yes.
To me, the Pato plus 800, I think, would be a value.
Yeah.
Maybe Colton too at 800.
Shoot, Scott Dixon and Willpower at plus 1,000?
Yeah, that's true, but I don't know. I'm not getting into the old man debate right now.
Not today.
Not today.
All right, Indy 500 odds.
Okay.
Shocker, who do you think's the
Joseph
favorite?
Newgarden.
Yeah, he's plus 650.
If you had to pick somebody most likely to three-peat, would it be Alex Palou or Joseph Newgarden?
Ooh, man, I go with Palou.
Me too.
He's so consistent, and I get it. A lot has to go right to win a championship, but a lot has to go right for an Indy 500.
Yeah, which sounds weird, one race as opposed to the season, but I just feel like there's more errors that can cost you the race than errors that can cost you an entire season.
Yes, you got
that makes sense.
You have the opportunity, and granted, IndyCar's been so close in the title fights over the years, but you're basically allowed one bad race.
Right.
Indy 500, you have one bad pit stop.
Yeah.
One penalty. Unless you get really, really lucky, like Montoya did one time.
Yeah.
Where he had the issue early in 2015.
Yeah, was running last. Yeah.
And came back to win. That pretty much would do you in most Indy 500. So Pato plus 700 right behind. Guess who's third? Think about the entries.
Kyle Larson.
Yeah, plus 800. It's a little high. Palou and Dixon and McLaughlin plus 1,000. Willpower plus 1,200. Rossi plus 1,200 as
Where's
well.
Where's Pato?
Pato is plus 700, right behind Newgarden. Okay. And then other value, Herta plus 1,400. Ferrucci plus 1,600. Elio plus 2,000. Ericsson as well, along with Kirkwood. Connor Daly, David Malukas, Felix Rosenqvist is plus 2,500, and Sato's listed on there. Couple other names, Jacob Abel listed on there on the odds. Just names to keep in mind of who could be in the odds. Ed Carpenter plus 4,000, along with Graham Rahal and Ryan Hunter-Reay, Christian Lundgaard. All that, Rinus VK plus 3,000. So that's a look at some of the early odds.
Got it.
I would say if you're in that plus 1,600 territory or plus 2,000, like that's probably the sweet spot as far as value.
Yeah, in terms of making some money, there's some value there.
So that is a look. Anything that we missed?
I don't think so. I think we covered pretty much everything over the holidays and throughout this week, and we're less than 2 months away from the start of the season.
Yeah.
Just for how much people moan and groan, I guess, for how long the off season is. It hasn't felt that long, but it's always like the month before that just seems like the longest. Getting through February is a freaking grind.
Yes. And I think it does help that St. Pete, instead of being mid to late March, is moved up to beginning of March.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, right at March 2nd. I mean, they'll be on track on February 28th. Right?
Yes.
So it's not that far away, folks. We're almost there, but January and February are always the worst months in general, but February in terms of auto racing, because you get the tease with Daytona, and then you're like, usually you have to wait at least 3 weeks. We have to wait 2 weeks after Daytona for St. Pete. So it's coming, folks. It's coming, but we'll have plenty to talk about between now and when rubber hits the road at St. Pete.
With that, time for our random split era driver of the week.
All right, we're going to the 2005 season of the Champ Car World Series. Actually, the 2005 Bridgestone presents the Champ Car World Series, powered by Ford.
Yes, my favorite.
We're going
favorite
with Alex Sparafico
Ooh, yeah.
Brazilian racing driver. He's the oldest of the 4 racing Sparaficos. You have autographs from all 4, autographed helmets, I do believe, that decorate Ted's room. From 2000 so he first got into racing with the 12 hours of Sebring. He did that in the early 2000s. Now he did the Barber Dodge Pro Series. I don't even know what that was.
That was like a very early Formula car series.
But it was open wheel. It was like,
yeah.
So I'm looking at it, late 90s, early 2000s.
It's like if you move up from karts and then do like the School of Racing thing, and then that would be like a series you could compete in, so I think. Like
the 2000 season, Ryan Hunter-Ray was the Rookie of the Year in that series. But anyway, he did portions of 4 seasons in the Barber Dodge Pro Series and then moved up to the Champ Car World Series in the portions of 3 seasons, 2003, 2004, 2005. Let's look at him over those 3 seasons, all glorious Champ Car seasons. 2003 with Dale Coyne Racing, 2004 with Conquest Racing. That's where he appeared in the majority of his races in his career. And then 2005 was CTE HVM Racing. I don't think CTE means then what it does now.
Chronic traumatic encephalopathy? No.
I don't think that's that. That's CTE.
Different CTE.
But he did overall, 13 races, something like that. He returned stateside in 2003 after doing Formula 3000 and the Barber Dodge Pro Series. He ran half the season for My Jack Conquest Racing in 2004. Few races for CTE HVM in 2005. Unable to find a seat on the grid in 2006, he moved to the Brooks Associates Racing Team in the ultra-competitive Atlantic Series. It sounds like he wrote this Wikipedia article himself, calling it ultra-competitive. And he did several races in Atlantics in 2006. His best finish in Champ Car was an 8th place finish in that 2005 year at Toronto. Overall, he had 2 top 10s, the other top 10 also coming at Toronto. So he was a Toronto ringer, apparently. But the 4 racing Sparaficos, I'm going to talk about these guys, okay? So there's 4 of them. There's the one we're referring to, which is Alexandre, or Alex. So he is a cousin of Rafael Sparafico, who was apparently in 2007 killed at Interlagos in a junior league race to the Stock Car Brazil series. His car was T-boned. So those 2 are cousins. They were those 2 were brothers, and they had cousins, Ricardo Sparafico, who also did 1 season in the Champ Car World Series.
Yeah, the 2005 season. So it's funny. I'm looking this up, and I'm confused. I'm like, is there an error on Wikipedia? No. Ricardo did the full season with Coyne in 2005. Meanwhile, Alex did 2 races in 2005.
The brothers Sparafico, or those 2 were cousins. But then you had also Rodrigo Sparafico, who raced in F3000 and F3, also raced in the Brazilian Stock Car Series. So the Brazilian racing family of Sparaficos, which I did not know was actually a thing, 4 of them, 2 of which appeared in open wheel in North America, 2 of which appeared in that 2005 season. We're talking about Alex. And again, did in that 2005 season just 2 races, Toronto and Edmonton. They were back-to-back, an 8th and a 12th. He is now, let me do the math. He is now 50 years old as of this year, was born in Toledo, Paraná, Brazil.
Yeah, not Toledo, Ohio.
Not Toledo, Ohio, but Toledo, Paraná in Brazil. Mr. Alex Sparafico, this week's Random Split Era Driver of the Week.
And looking at the 2005 Champ Car, the 2005 Bridgestone presents the Champ Car World Series powered by Ford roster driver lineup. There are at least like 15 Random Split Air Drivers of the Week. In fact, the entire CTE Racing HVM roster are Random Split Air Drivers of the Week.
And
we covered Bjorn Werdheim.
Yeah, I'll have to cross-reference. We did Homero Richards. We did Ronnie Bremer.
Did we do Rodolfo Lavin yet?
not sure if we have.
I think we did because he was sponsored by Corona. I feel like we did. We did him before.
Well, that's an interesting thing too. Look at the sponsor for Alex Sparafico. It was sponsored by Anson, Korea.
Which didn't they host?
That's a city in Korea.
Yeah, didn't they host a race or
year?
They were supposed to host, and
Okay.
it never happened. I think.
That explains, because I was like, that's bizarre.
Yeah,
that it's city.
Second year in a row, the race in Korea was canceled. Street circuit race in the capital of Seoul removed from the 2004 schedule. And then at the Anson circuit was placed on the 2006 schedule, but that race never happened. So that explains that.
Just to know, I guess so. They were supposed to race after Surfers. Week before. So October 16th was supposed to be the race. They canceled the race in September. So about a month before the race was even supposed to happen. And as you mentioned, was canceled the year before as well. So, and it was also then placed on the initial 2006 schedule. That never took place. 3 straight years they had it on the schedule and had to cancel it.
That is how Champ Car was in those days.
Just so you think that IndyCar can be inept, just read up on Champ Car, late year Champ Car, and just be thankful.
Races all over the world. Oh, we have these exciting announcements, and they either would happen one year or wouldn't happen at all.
Oh man, we're on much more solid ground, I assure you, here in 2025.
Absolutely. So that is our random split driver of the week, and that does it for the first episode of 2025 for Justin Kinney. I am Caleb Hatch. We'll be back next week with the latest news in IndyCar here on New Track Record Podcast.